Thanks for tuning in today. We're going to have a good look at two of the big names in mid-launch iron shafts, namely the Kbs Tour and the Nippon Modus. So they're both advertised at 120 grams. We've got the Kbs Tour stiff 120, and we've got Nippon Modus Tour 120 grams stiff. Okay, so it's worth noting that sometimes advertisers or manufacturers, what they advertise is not quite accurate, or it's as accurate as they can get it. So, for example, we've got two shafts that are advertised at 120. The KBS is actually 120, and the Modus is 114 grams. So they are slightly different in weight. Another thing worth noting is a torque value. Now, we don't have a torque value for the KBS, but we do have a torque value for the Modus, which is 1.7. Now, with torque, a lot of people talk about torque, and it's not a standardized thing. So basically what happens is at the end of the shaft, they get a certain weight. They pull down on the shaft at one side, and it tells you how much the shaft is twisting. Now, that weight is not standardized. The point at which they do it on the shaft is not standardized. So you get two companies that'll advertise with a driver shaft, for example, a 4.1 torque, and they could be totally different if they'll measure the same way. So some of these numbers, while we're all numbers orientated and numbers never lie, numbers do lie when they're tested differently. Okay, so the thing that doesn't lie is actuals, how the ball goes, how the shaft performs for you. That's the truth. At the end of the day, I suppose the score that you sign for at the end of the day, it doesn't lie either. So both of these shafts are tour tested. They're very, very high quality. The KBS Tour, you see players like Mickelson, Adam Scott, a lot of KBS players out on tour. A few notables. With the Modus, there's tour tested players, Sergio Garcia, Australia's own Mark Leishman. So both of these shafts, it'd be interesting to see how they go against each other. I'm going to go outside in the simulator, hit a bunch of balls, and just see what we think. Now, like I say, the advertised specs are around the mid-launch. What's mid-launch? I don't know. I suppose it's mid compared to something that goes lower. What is mid-spin? Again, I don't know. There's no value that we can put on these advertised things. So that's why I suppose people like myself, we try and do some honest reviews and just say, this is what it's spinning at. These are actual numbers. This is what I've got from my swing. So I'm going to go outside and hit a few balls and see how we go. Okay, so I've hit some shots and the results are interesting actually. Have a look at the table. Go for the summary. So the 6 iron at the top is a KBS, the 6 iron 1 being the Modus. You'll see the total meters. Modus went 5 meters further. I got a little bit extra club head speed with the Modus, about 2 miles an hour, which equated to a couple of miles an hour ball speed. You see the spin rates are very, very similar, within 150 RPM. There's a lot of things that are very, very similar. When you have a look at here, the launch, while the KBS launched 1 degree higher, the descents were very similar, and the peak heights at 25.1 meters were within 0.1 meters, so pretty much identical, which now that 25.1 is about what they would call mid, 75 feet in the air, is about a mid-launching shaft. So, I would classify them both mid, and the results were very, very similar with both shafts. If we have a look at the grouping, bring that down a bit. There's the Kbs grouping, which is good. There's probably one little loose one out to the right. And then when I add the Modus in, you see, I mean, they're similar. The Modus is just at the front end of that scale, so I probably didn't, mishit as many with the Modus as I did maybe with the Kbs. So that's why the mean distance is 5 meters longer for the Modus. The back to front was only 3 meters, which is pretty unbelievable, really, for a shaft. And the accuracy was just that little bit tighter as well. So, from a fitting perspective, it's Modus for me. It's not to say it's the best shaft or whatnot, but certainly looking at the data there, it's come out on top. So you see the results there. Modus was certainly the winner for me. But again, they're slightly different feeling shafts. So the KBS is what I would call like a standard feel. Not that standard is bad, but there's no real soft tip, soft mid, soft handle. There's none of that. It's fairly consistent in its bend profile. Whereas the Modus is a little bit softer, definitely could feel a softness in the handle. And I kind of like that. I mean, I'm a graphite player in my irons. I love the soft feel. I like the forgiveness of it. So with the Modus, I got a little bit more of that feeling, and that's probably why I got a little bit more speed out of it with a softer, slightly softer handle. Now, people say that Modus does play a little bit softer. In this case, it probably did, and it probably did feel softer. But certainly the results actually produced a tighter shot dispersion, more consistent, nicer feeling, same sort of flight, very similar spin numbers. So, that one, yes, while it definitely did perform better, not to say the KBS is poor, they're both very, very similar. You wouldn't be disappointed with either. So anyway, that's why these things are pretty important to get a good perspective in crossing over brands, not just taking the brand's word that, this will do this and this will do that, but both definitely mid-launching. I don't produce a lot of spin with my irons, so that the spin numbers were, on the lower side, but I'm sure they could be even lower with different shafts. We'll test out some more in the coming weeks. So thanks for watching today's video. You got any questions, or if you'd like me to cover something, let us know. Thanks for watching today's video. Make sure you click on like and subscribe. Let us know if there's anything else you'd like to see, and we'll see you in the next video.